Hi everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. If you've had an encounter of your own and would like to speak with me whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've listened to the show for any period of time, you'll remember tonight's guest, Joedy Cook. Joedy, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Oh, it's great having you back.
Oh, definitely.
For those people who haven't heard you on the show before, please tell them about yourself.
Well, I've been doing cryptozoology research for about 25 years plus. Most of the stuff I've been doing in the beginning years has been a lot of the Bigfoot stuff. Just recently been doing, within the last few years, doing the Dogman research because it's just been getting overwhelming with the amount of sightings that are going on, and going back looking at some of my old sightings, reports I had from the 80s and 90s, and remembering that some of these sightings, people were talking about these creatures, Bigfoot having, pointed ears and a snout and funny shaped legs and things, and never thought about it at the time that Dogman or anything like that, because they weren't really too much of the stuff going around. The only thing we really knew about was Dogman in Ohio, the London, Ohio case, and the Defiance, Ohio. But, people still knew about the Michigan Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road, the sightings there and stuff. But just looking at some of these sightings, and then I go back and I realized that, a lot of these sightings back then were actually Dogman sightings they were having, because you're looking at the descriptions of what these people were seeing compared to the description of what people are seeing today. So I've been getting into it very, very heavily. Created an organization called the North American Dogman Project, just trying to get as much information, data that we can, look at a pattern of where the sightings are taking place, if they're more in the summer, more in the winter, more at night, more at day. And, we're finding out that there isn't really a consistency of sightings in just one particular location, day or night or anything. It just seems like they're very well evened out throughout the seasons and throughout the day and night. So we find it very interesting.
Oh, it is a very interesting subject. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the whole no rhyme nor reason aspect of dogmen. It's so hard to draw a bead on anything they do or anything about them. I've had people contact me for whatever reason they thought the dogmen only came out at night. They'll be in an area where they know there are loads of dogmen and they'll tell me, well, I'll just go out into the woods this afternoon so I don't have to worry about them. I've been doing that lately, and I'm thinking, no, watch out now. They don't just come out at nighttime.
You have to look at it this way. I mean, you have an animal that's probably 300-400 pounds, okay, and he's muscle. I mean, if you look at your typical dog, that dog's muscle. It probably have about 1 or 2% body fat on it. This thing's probably the same thing. So it's going to spend every waking moment looking for food. That's what people don't understand. That's what predators do. They look for food, they eat, and they sleep, and they get back up and they continue doing it again and again and again. They may get a couple hours of sleep in, depending on how big the prey was that they ate. And we know dogs in general will eat themselves to death. So maybe this thing will do the same thing. It's going to be constantly hungry. So it's going to spend every waking moment looking for food. It doesn't have the pleasure of sleeping for 8 hours and then go looking for food. It's totally impossible. I mean, this thing has to keep a calorie intake in order to maintain the way it's going to perform when it's in the field. You can't think that these things sleep 8 hours and go up looking for food. It's totally impossible. Look at your typical predators. That's how they operate. They look for food, they sleep, get up, do it again. It's a complete cycle, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And if the location is plentiful with food, the food source is good, the water source is good, maybe it does. Maybe it can take its time to sleep and eat. But if there's a predator, most of the time the game leaves. It goes to an area where there are not going to be predators. So that's what you got to look at.
When you look at how big they are, I can only imagine what their daily caloric requirements would be. It's got to be awfully high.
Well, the way I look at it, I mean, the normal person, you and I, we probably bring in a normal day 12 to 15 100 calories, just depending on, if we stop and get McDonald's or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or if we eat healthy and things like that. Most females bring in maybe about 900 calories a day. But something that big, you're looking at 2,500 calories plus a day. It would have to in order to sustain itself. Make sure it has enough body fat on it to go through the winter. And the water intake, too, is probably the same thing. Typical canine, they don't sweat, but they pant through their mouth and stuff. And so, that's another thing, the amount of water intake they would have to take in the summer because of the amount of hair that they have. Their cooling system of their body is probably a lot different than humans are, so where they're able to maintain the temperature in their body. But something that big it's mind-blowing to sit there and think on how much this thing probably would eat in a day or in a 24-hour period.
Yeah, when you think about how many calories they would require every day, it is mind-blowing to think that somehow they're able to meet that need. Yeah, they do have a lot more things to worry about than we do since we have it made the way we do.
Yeah, and the thing about this is, like in the Bigfoot field, a lot of researchers sit there and think, this thing hides its track. They hide their movement and stuff. No, these creatures don't, even Bigfoot, I would say, with Dogman, they don't worry about hiding their tracks. They don't worry about breaking brush and things like that when they move through an area. They don't have time to worry about that. They're constantly looking for food, looking for safety, watching their surroundings. They're not cautious until they know that there's somebody there. That's when they become cautious. You look at wolves and cougars and stuff. They'll go right into a residential area to find food. They don't get cautious about it because they're hungry. But if there's a lot of people around or a lot of movement and things like that, yeah, they're going to be cautious because they don't want to get caught. But, when it comes to being hungry, cautiousness, it gets thrown out the window. A lot of these things, they're in rural areas and residential areas, and there's food sources there. Even in a residential area, there's food sources. There's small pets, there's trash, squirrels, birds, things like that. So I believe that's why you see a lot more sightings of them in residential areas and communities more than you do in a heavily wooded area because of the food source. Give you an example, we talked about this last show. In Akron, the dogmen that were known to be in Metro Park. Well, what were they doing? They were going out of the Metro Park and going into the condominiums and going through the dumpsters because that was a food source, and they did that at night, and people were seeing them doing it. They thought they were large dogs until actually, they noticed these things were on two legs. But that's what they were doing, and they're not cautious when it comes to survival when it's looking for food. And the thing of it is, I don't think they fear man as much as a Bigfoot does. Bigfoot fears man because I believe they know man is dangerous. A dog man, I think, looks at man as an opportunity if it got there. So I don't think they fear people at all.
I'm not going to go so far as to say that I don't think they fear humans, but I will definitely agree that they don't seem to fear humans nearly as much as what Sasquatch do.
Right. I think a Sasquatch has common sense. Okay? I don't think he's really intelligent. I just think he has common sense. Okay? He knows better. Okay? And I believe if I had a choice between intelligence and common sense, I'd take common sense. I really would, because common sense keeps you alive. Intelligence really doesn't. And I think Dogman is intelligent. I think he's problem-solving intelligent. Bigfoot is too. He's a smart animal, but he has more common sense to compare to a Dogman. I don't think he has common sense at all. He's a predator. Predators don't have common sense. They're very problem-solving. They're smart on the way they do things. They have a certain way they do on their hunting and things like that makes them intelligent when it comes to camouflaging themselves, hiding, the way they stalk and things like that. That's intelligence. So I think that's the difference between a Bigfoot and, a Dogman when it comes to humans. Bigfoot knows humans has a boomstick. They know that. Dogman doesn't. I don't think he does. Because, like I said, he's a predator. He's going to be up on you before you see him. Bigfoot, you normally see him. Well, he normally sees you before you see him, but he's not going to aggressively stand there and let you look at him. He's going to move. He's going to move on. He doesn't want to be seen. These things, they want you to know they're there. They make sure they know that they're there. So there's kind of a deviance, I think, to them when it comes to that. They love the fear, I think, that they put in people, and that's intelligence.
You make some really good points, as always, there. I think you're onto something.
I'm hoping.
I think you just might be. All right, Joedy, you've got a bunch of new encounters to share with us. Please tell us about them.
2 police officers out in Indiana, okay, right outside of Indianapolis. There has been sightings of dogmen in this area. A few other police officers have seen them. People in the rural area there has been seeing them. These 2 officers never had the opportunity to see one. They kind of laugh it off, okay? They think these people are seeing misidentified animals. They think these other cops are doing the same thing. They just don't believe that there's something there. And they love when they get the call because to them it's amusing until they're out on patrol one night and they seen one. They were going down the road and they seen something sitting off the side of the road, and there was like a turnoff on the road, and there's kind of like a little area where you kind of like, I guess, turn around to get back on to the road. But there's an actual road you turn on there. And it was sitting there, and it was just about dusk when they seen it. It was still getting dark. So they went ahead and they pulled in. They pulled about maybe 20 feet in front of it. And they said this thing was just huge. It was sitting down. They saw the long tail. They knew it was some type of a canine. They seen the tail. They seen the top of the head, the high pointed ears. They were able to see the side view of the face when the head moved a little bit. They were able to see the snout. They described this thing as more looking like an Akita than a wolf. They said the color, and this is the neat part about it, it happened last winter, and they never said nothing to anybody until they saw our site, and that's when they told us about it. And they said the color was almost like a grayish white. I thought that was kind of odd. It's wintertime, and this is what the color of this creature was. It wasn't really white. It was, they said it was more of a gray, but it just, with the light going on it, it looked white. They said this thing sitting down on all fours was very close to maybe 5 feet, about 3.5 feet wide. The light was on it. The back was to the officers. Whatever it was doing, it wasn't paying any attention to them. They threw the siren on to get a better look. He said the thing didn't even budge at all when they threw the siren on and the lights. And then it got up, and then they were able to see what this thing looked like. It got back on all fours, and they said when it was on all fours, if it was next to the car, the body would have been over the height of the lights on the car. They said that's how big this thing was. The first thought was maybe, oh my God, this is a bear. This is a grizzly bear. But it had a dog's tail to it. The legs were very much like a dog. The whole body was like a dog, but they said it was the size of like a grizzly bear. They said it was that huge. They'd never seen anything like that. And it scared the hell out of them. I sat there and I said, did you guys turn on your dash cam? And they said, no, we didn't. We only turn our dash cam on when we go to pull somebody over. But we didn't even think about it because we were just, when we saw it, we wanted to go see what this thing was. And as we're pulling up, we're just looking at it and going, awe. And it was just, we never thought about it. I mean, we were just so much in awe on what we were seeing. And it was a very interesting case. I mean, these 2 officers were very legitimate guys. They had no problem whatsoever showing their face for an interview. They have a business they run on the side. In this particular area, it's like it's no big news. I mean, everybody sees it. Everybody, I mean, the whole police department has seen it, except for these 2 cops. And these 2 cops were the last ones on the department to see it. So it was an interesting sighting. They were just so much in awe. I mean, they're believers now. They're true believers. And they hope they see it again. They keep going to the site, hoping that it will be there. They're keeping their eyes out for it. And I asked them, I said, have they been in reports of this thing taking livestock or anything like that? And unfortunately, no. They don't have any reports of anything. There's animals coming up missing, but they don't know what the reason of it is. But they haven't been finding any mutilated animals or anything like that. So like I said, that's a very interesting case. We have another case where the police officer in Louisiana was going down the road, and he seen something in the middle of the road, kind of the same scenario, but this thing was eating roadkill. When he got up on it, he realized what it was. It got up, came at him. He had his dash cam on. He threw his car in reverse. He's going back down the road, trying to see where he's going, keeping an eye on this thing. It got up on his hood and was trying to bust through the window. And he remembers the paw hitting the window on the car, and it was like a baseball glove. It was that big when it hit the window. And so he was able to get away. The thing got off the vehicle and reported it to his department, turned in the dash cam. A few days later, he goes to see about getting a copy of it. They play stupid, like, we don't know what you're talking about. What dash cam, what report, things like that. And he's upset about it, that the department's keeping it from him. Obviously, this is a Lookaroo sighting, being in Louisiana. He's in this fight with his department in order to get the proof of what he's seen, because now people are laughing at him. And this is the only proof that he has that happened. But like you said, if it ever happens again, he's making a copy of it before he turns it in. He's just being a good officer and following protocol, but it scared him to death. And he described it as a werewolf. He said that's what it was. It was a werewolf. It had a dog's head. It had a snout, large body. Front paws were like human hands. This thing ran on two legs going about 25 miles an hour to get on his car, and that's pretty fast. It scared him to death. We're getting sightings like this from people who are law enforcement, people who are in the military. We got a sighting report from two guys who were Army Rangers that were out in the field. They were scouting an area and ran into one up close. We're getting, like I said, really good sightings from really credible people. We just got one today. This guy's a retired engineer, and he has pictures of it. He's going to send us the pictures. It was taken in Florida. He's ready to release his story, ready to release the photos that he has of this thing, and he came to us because he feels that, we're a legitimate organization. We know what we're doing, and I'm real happy about that. I'm going to definitely keep you updating, keep everybody updated on what's going on with that particular case there. Got a really, really good one this year out of Wisconsin, and we got some pictures of that. This guy, he's out in Crenshaw County. It's on the Illinois-Wisconsin border is where it's at. And he's walking his dog. And his dog starts freaking out. And he's wondering what's going on here. And then he sees this creature standing in the wood line watching him. And this is in a residential area. There's heavily wooded areas. There's a pretty good size lake-type pond that's there. And if you're him, you're standing there, so the wood line would be on your right and the residential area would be on your left, to give you an idea. So he pulls his cell phone out and he snaps a few pictures. And got a really good headshot of this thing because it's right by a tree where it's watching them. Didn't make any noise or anything like that. The picture shows very high pointed ears. You see the brow. You see the snout, and how the picture looks, the snout's kind of pointing downwards. There's a piece by the tree there that's kind of round, and it's right where the nose would be. So I don't think that's a nose. I might be wrong. I might be looking at the picture wrong. but you can see this thing very, very well. And he goes back a few days later to walk his dog again, sees it again. At that time, it kind of moves away. So he's walking down a little bit further where the lake is, and then he sees it across the lake. There's like a tree there, and the tree branch is kind of coming down, and it's standing there behind a tree branch, but you're able to see the bottom part where the legs are. So he snaps a picture of that. So we've got that picture. And like I said, it's a very interesting case. I think it was maybe 2 weeks, after that second sighting, he's seen it again watching some children get off the school bus. And when he got closer to where it was, it moved off again. So for some reason, this thing is hanging in this area. And for whatever reason, it's just observing what's going on. So he talked to a couple people around the area there. No one has really seen anything, but he doesn't know why this thing keeps hanging in this area. Maybe it's just it's fascinated with the vehicles. Maybe it's fascinated watching the people because it's something to do. I don't know. But on 3 occasions, he was able to see this thing in the same area, just watching. Didn't make any advance towards him or towards his dog or anything like that. And to this day, he continues to go out there. He hasn't seen it since, but he has actually gone into the woods with his dog, hoping that his dog will pick it up before him. And I'm like, dude, you never go out to the woods by yourself. and this is one thing I stress a lot. And we're doing a field manual talking about different things, how to maintain yourself in the field, how to do an investigation, things like that. And the one thing I put in there is that, safety before research. Never put yourself in a situation where you're by yourself, regardless of what it is. And that's why I tell people, don't ever go by yourself looking for this thing. Don't. It's dangerous. Not because of it. I mean, anything can happen. Murphy's Law. Think of Murphy's Law. What will go wrong will go wrong. And it normally does it when you're by yourself in the woods. So don't ever do that. And that's why I told him, I said, don't. So I could put him in contact with some of our people in Wisconsin and in Illinois saying, hey, work with these people here and they'll go with you. So that's what's going on right now. So we have a team that's out there working with this guy. Now we've got another case, well, actually 3, forgive me, in Indiana, northern Indiana, right around the Fort Wayne area. There was a woman. She knows that the people that live in this apartment complex have seen this thing. She has not. She don't believe in it, never believed in it. She's a paranormal researcher, believes in the ghost stuff, but doesn't really believe in the monster stuff. So this is during the day. She's right by her building in the car, is right there by the wood line. She's putting the kid in the car. The kid notices something out on the other side of the car. Well, she didn't see it. She was worried about getting the kid strapped in, so she gets herself back out of the car in the back, and she sees the back of this creature by her car. And she said this thing was just absolutely huge. It was a large black dog. I mean, it was well over the back hood of the car. And it was looking in the car at her child. She slams the door, gets in the car, throws the car in reverse, and gets away. She didn't see it move or run back or anything like that. She thinks the minute she turned the car on and threw it in reverse, it just hauled. But she's seen it that close to her vehicle. And she says, I have a dog. I know what dogs look like. This was not a dog. We have bear, and this thing's not a bear. At first, she thought it was a black bear, but she said it had a long tail like a dog. And the back of it, with the back legs, was a dog. So she was able to see this, but she wasn't able to see the head of the creature because she was looking at the back part of it. But she said, according to the child, this thing's looking in at the kid. So she was absolutely terrified. So she talked to a couple neighbors about it, and they're like, oh, yeah, we see this werewolf all the time. It's like, I'm like, I mean, this is the thing that kills me. And I'm serious. And a lot of researchers will sit and tell you, it's like no big deal to a lot of people. They see it. You don't hurt me, I don't hurt you. And that's how it is. I mean, I ran into several cases like that where people are like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. We see it all the time. It doesn't bother anybody. You know what I'm saying? Then take a picture, take a video. I mean, do something. But it's like, they're like, well, if it doesn't bother anybody, why? I mean, my head wants to explode sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And this is the stuff we deal with some of these people. Germantown is the same way. It's like everybody knows about it, but it's no big deal. In Wisconsin, it's the same thing. Everybody knows about it, but it's no big deal. It's like the town's dirty little secret, but yet, and I kind of find this fascinating. I think people protect it. If it's not hurting anybody, don't hurt it. They don't want people running around looking for this thing. They don't want the aggravation. They don't want all the commotion. And that's why people don't normally say things when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, it's weird. So we got this other case out of North Bend where these two guys, there's this church that has like an abandoned kids area. Okay. And for some reason, the church never lets the kids go out there anymore. So these guys want to kind of like figure out what's out there. Why isn't the church letting the kids go out there? There's a reason. So they go out there one night. They look at the church, and they're looking at the back area and stuff. And then, there's kind of like a trail that kind of leads down there. So they're going down this trail and they're just walking. It was no big deal. They didn't see anything. They, were out for quite some time. And then they're coming back. And then all of a sudden, about 10 feet in front of them, this thing literally jumps out of the bush and just dives into the other side of the bush. They seen the head of this thing. It looked right at them when they did it. It's like it was running, and they thought maybe the reason why this thing jumped was to kind of like jump over them, because he said there was like no reason why this thing would have jumped. They described it as very slender body. They said like a deer, that type of slender. The back legs were extremely long. The front arms were they weren't as long as the leg and stuff. And it was like this motion where it was like just a run, and it just made eye contact with them as it jumped over the trail they were on. And, they said they hauled, man. They ran. They said it scared them so bad that they didn't tell anybody about this. Anybody. I mean, it scared them that bad. These guys are hunters, and they go, we won't even go out into the field and hunt anymore because of what we've seen. They said, we're done. We're done. We won't. It scared them that much, but that was the only time that they've seen it. But it's like, well, go set some trail and stuff out there. No, we won't even do it. We won't even go out there. So we have a team member that's going to go out there to the area, and they're going to show them exactly where it was, where they seen it. And we're going to set some cameras up in that area. That was a good sighting. I mean, the guy, he got really emotional when he was telling the story. I mean, it still affected him now, when he was telling the story. So then we have another sighting. What happened the night before Halloween, this past Halloween. Young girl's going down the road, and she sees something black on the side of the road, and it looks like a very large dog. And she said as the car got up, she said this thing just went flat on the ground and literally like did what she called a combat crawl down into the woods. And she's sitting there as she's driving by, she's seeing this thing do this. And she said the tail was almost as long as the legs on this thing. And she don't know what it was doing on the side of the road there, but it was there on the side of the road. It saw her when she came up around the bend, and she said this thing just went flat and just like did this. But she said it was a dog. I mean, it was a large dog, but she's never seen a dog do what this thing did, which I find very interesting, that it was able to go flat. Now, I've seen cats do that when you're walking your dog and there's a cat there. A cat will go like really flat on the ground. Rabbits will do it, will go flat on the ground to kind of camouflage themselves against predators. But apparently this is what this thing did. It just went flat on the ground and kind of like crawled into the bush line instead of running into the bush line. So where it was camouflaging itself along the ground. And she said, I won't even drive up around that road. You know, and what's so interesting is that this road is within, I think it was, what I figured out? I want to say within a mile or half a mile of where these guys saw their sighting. It's in that general area, which is kind of interesting. And the sighting with the woman in the car, that's 5 miles from where these 2 other sightings took place. So it's within a 5-mile radius where these 3 sightings have taken place.
That's close.
Yeah, it is. A lot of the stuff that we're getting is very old stuff. Here's another interesting thing. I mean, we're getting a lot of stuff from like the UK and Australia. We got one yesterday from a guy in Australia. He's 45 now. He was 21 at the time, and he wasn't feeling well, and his mom gave him some medication. He ended up getting on top of the table to do something. I can't remember because I had to go back to look at the report, but he ended up getting on top of the dining room table after he took the medicine and stuff. And then as he's on top of the dining room table, this window is 6 foot off the ground, a big bay window. And there's this thing right out there about 5-6 feet away from the window. He sees this thing. They had this jug of water that was like outside. And from where he was on top of this table, where this thing was standing, he was able to see the upper body of it. I mean, that high this thing was off the ground, 6 feet. So he's estimating this thing was probably about 8 feet. Very canine looking, and it started to drink the water out the jug. And he ends up spitting the medication out, and his mom sees it, and they're freaking, and she gets on the table too. And they're looking at this thing in the bay window. And like I said, that's an older sighting. This is Australia. But we're getting sightings of dogmen in Australia. We got some in New Zealand. We're getting a lot of stuff, like you said, from other countries because there's not a whole lot out there, resources for these people to go to. There's a guy in the UK that's doing a documentary on the UK werewolf, and he didn't have a whole lot of stuff to go on, and he came to us about sightings in the UK, newspaper articles, documentations, and things like that, because they don't secure their documents like we do here. You know, newspapers, they recycle over there. They have to recycle. So a lot of newspaper articles and stuff like that, they don't put into archives and things like that. A lot of them big major newspapers, they do, but a lot of these smaller town newspapers, they don't because they recycle. And luckily, I happen to have quite a few newspaper articles from the UK that I gave him for his documentary. We gave him people who had sightings over there, newspaper articles, photographs, things like that. And so it turned out really good. So now we have a really good source over there. If anything new happens, we can get some good stuff from the UK from this guy. But like I said, you know, the site is just kicking in really, really well. It's getting bigger. We have so many sighting reports. I mean, we're still putting stuff on. I mean, we still have so much stuff we need to put on. We're going to expand a lot of things on the site to where a lot more people are able to get better information, stuff that's out there. But, you know, we need to get a lot more stuff from people out there. If anybody has sightings or anybody has anything dealing on the subject, please talk to us. We definitely would love to hear what you have to say. We're very professional with the information that we get. If you don't want your identity told, we won't tell your identity, but just help us on getting the information that we need.
It sure sounds to me like you guys hit the ground running with that project. The last time you came on the show, you told us about encounters people had had with what they call the Shenango Valley Werewolf in Pennsylvania. From what I understand, a new encounter was reported to you. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, the Shenango Valley Werewolf, we had a sighting out there. To give you some backstory here, the Shenango Valley is a national park, and there have been quite a few sightings that take place there. We have a couple of newspaper articles about them on our website. Brian Seach with the Center for Cryptozoology Studies, he's one of our researchers, has been doing a lot of research out in that area. And they've been getting a lot of really good information that's coming out of there. We got contacted by a woman that has been hearing howling coming out of the wood line there. Now, she's on the border of the Shenango Valley Reserve, and she's been hearing the howling at night. It's been scaring her. A couple nights, she has a patio set out there where this thing has came into the yard and just literally took the chairs and the patio and just threw them up against the house. Did some damage to the house, throwing them up there. The growling's like a dog. She's hearing this thing, but where her bedroom is to where this is taking place is kind of like around the corner. So by the time she got out of her bedroom to run into the other room to where she's able to see, the damage is already there and this thing is gone. So she never went out at night to check anything out. She always went out in the morning. Whatever this thing was able to throw the patio chairs and the patio table 7 feet. Literally to swing 7 feet to the house. And it kept doing it for a few nights in a row. And so, she contacted and said, listen, what do you think this is? You were asking her, well, tell us what you're hearing. What are the sounds that you're hearing? And she says, it's a howl like a wolf. She says that whatever this thing is, it's big. The way she described the howl, it vibrates when it howls. It was the best way she can describe it. So that's why what makes her think that whatever it is, it's huge. So we sent Brian out there. So Brian is going to talk to her, set up some trail cams in the area there to see what we can come up with. Is it the Dogman doing this, or is it a Bigfoot or something? We don't know, because we actually don't have a visual of what was seen out there. But what she is describing by the sound and by the growling that this thing is making and what it's doing and the location that it's at, it's most likely the Dogman that's doing this. It could be a bunch of kids for all we know, but there's no one else around this area for a pretty good distance. So she don't think it's a bunch of kids, because, kids laugh and they giggle and you can hear them being human. But she said, whatever this thing, it's not human, what's ever doing this. So, and she's pretty scared. She's pretty scared.
I hope she doesn't make the mistake of going out back when it's out there.
Oh, she won't. She won't. We talked about that, and she won't do it. She won't do it.
Well, thank goodness. Yeah, that'd be her last mistake.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing. There was another encounter you heard about that happened in Milford, Ohio. Please tell us about it.
That's a pretty good one. The Milford case, there was a guy that seen this creature out in a field walking on two legs, got a pretty good glimpse of it. It didn't notice him or anything like that, but he was able to notice it, described it very well as very large dog just walking on two legs, was able to see his snout, the high ears and things like that. So that was pretty well that sighting of what he saw. He didn't know anything about Dogman. He didn't know anything about werewolves or anything like that. He just found it astonishing that this large thing walking was shaped like a dog, with the tail and everything. And it really kind of confused him. And then he did what most normal people do when they see something. They Google what they seen, and they have all this other stuff that popped up dealing with the subject, and that's how he found us and contacted us. That was another sighting. We had another sighting out in the Batavia area in Ohio off of Route 32, where the water company out there in Claremont County, they have an area where they have all these water tanks and things like that, and they go and check on them, pressure and things like that. So they have to kind of like go down this road, and there's a gate, and they go in there. Well, when you turn down this road, there's a house that sits right there. So it was about 4:30 in the morning, and this guy, he turns in, and he's going down this road. He sees the house, and then the security light on the garage pops on. And he sees this thing standing there by the garage, looking at the cars. And it kind of turns its head and looks at him as he's going down the road. And the way he described it, he goes, "Did you ever see the movie Underworld with those big werewolves?" He said, "That's what this thing looked like. Huge upper body, huge head, long arms, dog-style legs." And he looked right at it. This thing's looking right at him, and it's standing there under the security light. And he said it was totally black fur. The skin, like on his face, was black. He was able to see the eye shine. And he wouldn't even go into that gated area to check the stuff. He left. He said he pulled right out. He will never go back in there unless it's daytime, because they have to go there at a certain time to check the pressure. And he said he told his boss, he said, "No, not until the sun comes up is when I'll go in there and I'll check it."
Whew. Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, so we got pictures of the house and the road there. For the report, we have a kind of picture of a silhouette standing where he saw the creature at, and the two cars were still there in the driveway. So we have a visual of what he's seen as he was going down the road there. So that's an interesting case. And there was another guy that was actually in that area that actually seen something too. A guy that lives a few houses up the road said he's actually seen it coming home from work at night, and he would just see it hanging around the fence line there by where the water company is. And it said it scared him a couple times. He only seen it just a few times there and stuff, but it was actually on the inside of the fence. It wasn't on the outside. So it was on the inside away from him when he was able to see this thing. So we're getting some pretty good reports similar to that with the sightings. They're just real quick sightings that they're seeing. Not a whole lot of information dealing with it. It was just one of these things where these people have seen it. They kind of describe what they've seen, and that's really about it. And that's kind of the stuff that we're getting. We're getting a couple other sightings where people are putting in a real long backstory. Then they tell their sighting, and then they tell everything else around. It's interesting. I love those, but just keep it simple when you tell the story, because when you start bringing other things into the story about certain things there, it's going to make you throw off what you're going to say about your actual sighting and things. But like I said, we're getting a lot of good stuff, and I'm real happy about it.
Oh, I don't blame you. It sounds like you're doing really well. For any eyewitnesses who want to reach out and contact you to share their encounter with you, how could they do that?
They can go on the website. There's a page there. You go and you send your report in. You can contact us through there. You can contact us through our Facebook page, North American Dogman Project. They can look for me, Joedy Cook, on Facebook and send me a message through there. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. And we'll get back with you. It may take a day or two, but we'll definitely get back with you.
Well, that definitely makes it easy to reach you.
Makes it really easy, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, sure sounds like it. From what I understand, there was another encounter in Germantown that you investigated. What can you tell us about that?
That was a pretty interesting case. This happened this past September. This young woman, she's not from Ohio. She's only been in Ohio for about 5 years. She married a guy that lives there in Germantown. She has a nice house and family and everything. But she knew from stories from her husband where they talked about the Butter Street Monster. And the Butter Street Monster is the werewolf of Germantown, where the first sightings took place in Germantown was on a street called Butter Street. And it goes back like 50 years. And that's how everything kind of got started, but it went from the Butter Street Monster to the Germantown Werewolf. So she knew about these stories of this thing. So she's sitting on the front porch with her husband. The kids are out in the yard. It's about right around 8:30. It was starting to get dusk. And so her husband says, "Look, I'm going to go on in, and I'm going to go ahead and get them ready for bed and get a shower." And so she wanted to sit a few more minutes on the front porch. So she's sitting there on the front porch. So there's a abandoned house across the road. And she sees something kind of come around the side of the house and look into the window of this abandoned house. So it's a dark figure. It's starting to get dark. So she's thinking it's a kid, someone trying to break in. So she starts walking down the walkway of her house, and then she opens up the gate. As she was doing that, there was a car that was just turning left onto the street there. And the headlights, being dusk, he had his headlights on, hits the creature. And she sees what this thing is. A large dog-type creature. Long tail, massive head, large upper body. It's trying to get into this abandoned house. When the car came around the corner with the lights hit on it, it kind of stopped, looked at her, looked at him. The car was actually slowing down to look at it because he's seen it, the guy in the car. And then he just hauls. So she sees this thing, so she's moving back, getting ready to run, and it goes down on all fours and starts running. So she's a gun enthusiast, so she goes and grabs her M4 carbine and goes outside with it. She's ready to shoot this thing because she's got kids. She's afraid. So that's a sighting that she had, but she described it being about 7 feet. She saw it when it walked over to the house. It was walking on 2 legs. But once she got closer and the lights hit it, she was able to see it was this massive dog-shaped creature with a massive head, large snout, high ears, long tail, bushy. When it ran off, she said it went off on all fours. So it wasn't a dog trying to look into this thing, because this window, I think we estimated it when it was about 6.5 feet up. And this thing was big enough it was able to still stand there and actually look into it. So the size that she described it to be is about correct, right around 7 feet. That was a really good sighting. That was a new sighting that we've got out of Germantown. That was pretty exciting. And like I said, this one was a non-believer also, but it scared her enough to run inside her house to grab her gun. It was a real good sighting. I'm real happy about that one. So we got a really good drawing of what she's seen. So pretty good. I think that was probably one of the best ones we got out of Germantown.
That poor woman shall never be the same.
Oh, no, man. I tell you what, she's still looking for it. She sits out on her porch at night hoping to see it again. I find that out with a lot of people. Once they see it once, they want to see it again because they want to get a better look and a better understanding of what it is that they're seeing. Because it's one of these things that's just, it jumps at you so quick, you just don't understand what you're seeing. And they want to see it again so they get a better understanding. Was this what I saw?
I can appreciate her wanting to get a better look at that thing, but sometimes when people do that, they wind up getting too close of a look at it, and that's not good.
Oh, yeah. And then that's when they put themselves in danger. So, yeah, that's why I told her. I said, don't worry. When it's ready to let you see it again, it's going to let you see it again. And it's probably there when you're asleep. It's probably back out there. So she don't know if it's living in that house or not. But we did find out that there's 2 police officers in that area. One is a Germantown police officer. The other one is Carlisle that actually seen it. So that's kind of backing her story up right there. They didn't see it in the same area at the same time, but they've seen it in the general area. So we know that there's something there. So that's good.
Yeah, that definitely does help corroborate her story then.
Yeah, definitely.
From what I understand, there have been some new happenings around the LBL.
There's some stuff that's going on down there that we're finding out. We're talking with a couple people down there that's had some sightings in the LBL area. And some of the stuff that they're reporting, how can I say this? It's kind of, to me, I mean, I don't downplay anybody's story, okay? But you do get some that are kind of way out there, but that doesn't make it not true. But in this case, I know who the individuals are, so I can honestly say that they're probably pretty legitimate with what they're finding out. But they're finding out that the community down there believes that the creatures in the LBL are not so much flesh and blood creatures. They believe that these are actual werewolves that are people. that transform into werewolves. And these people are pretty serious about it. They're pretty serious about telling you, don't tell people that you're outsiders. Don't stay at certain hotels down there. And there are people actually missing from this area. So that's kind of spooky. But they believe that there's some ancient bloodline of people that live down there in the community that find the LBL as a feeding ground. That's the kind of stuff that we're getting right now. I don't believe in transformation, okay? I've never believed in transformation. I think it's physically impossible. I think that it would actually kill somebody if they did it. Your bones would have to be cartilage. It would destroy your organs. But there again, I could be wrong, okay? I could be wrong. But this is the kind of stuff that we're getting right now out of the LBL area. Now, here's another thing. We're doing an expedition down there in April. So when we contacted the LBL, I was looking for an area where we can have this at. They knew right off the bat who we were. They said, are you the guys that go looking for the werewolves? We're like, what?
Oh.
Seriously. And they said, yeah, we've been following you on Facebook. And it's like, well, that's scary. That's kind of spooky that the park's been doing that. They've been following us about the expedition. But they said they wanted to put us in an area that's like 22 miles into the park where there is no Wi-Fi. You basically have to park your car and literally hoof into the area. And this is where they wanted to put us. And it's like, no. No. We want to be in an area where there's Wi-Fi. We want to be in an area, if someone gets hurt, it's not going to take 30 minutes to go find help. The thing of it is, we know this area because there's sightings in this area, which makes it good. But the fact of it is, logistically, it's not a good site. One, for safety. Two, there's no resources to call for help if you need it. And you're in an area where anything could happen. So it's like, no, we're not doing this. This is the area that we want. So they weren't happy about that. I mean, it's just the whole situation was just so odd with the way they were wanting to deal with this with us. So I don't know. And we heard this like a little bit prior to the stories that we're getting now. And now it's kind of like, maybe it's kind of making sense. Because it's just, like I said, I mean, the hair on the back of my neck stood up when they said they were following us on Facebook. And it's like, oh, wow. You know, that's scary. So some of the guys were saying, well, maybe for security reasons, maybe we shouldn't do it. It seems like they might be a little bit of something not good about this. So we're kind of like in debate right now if we're going to do the LBL. If we don't do the LBL, we're going to do something else at the same time period. So, yeah, it's kind of odd, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it sure sounds pretty odd to me. Do you know offhand of this area where they wanted you to stay? Is that north or south of Highway 68?
It's south. It's like dead smack in the middle. Dead smack in the middle of the park. It's actually on the Tennessee side.
Okay, I see. It sounds to me like they're trying to keep you away from the action because most of the action's going to be happening north of Highway 68 if you're after dogmen.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. All the sightings and everything's all in the northern part of the park. Now, the two, how can I say this? There's 5 known incidents that happened down there, okay? And 3 of them were in the northern part of the park, up where most of the regular campsites are, where all the activities taking place. I mean, human activity. And the other 2 were actually in the southern part of the park. And actually, one of them is in the area where they wanted to put us. What people don't understand, the majority of the sightings are all in the northern part of the park, on the Kentucky side. And like you said, yeah, they want to put us so far down south where nothing is actually taking place.
Yeah, that is awfully strange and hard to figure out, but who knows why they do the things they do?
The thing of it is, the parks know about it. They know about these sightings, and they just don't know how to deal with it. So the best way to do it is just be quiet about it. That's the best way to handle it. Just don't say nothing until something happens, and then they're going to have to answer to why no one said anything. But it could be covered up as a regular animal attack, bear or whatever. Now what they're saying down in the LBL, there's a cougar down there. And it's like, oh, that's a predator. But why are you saying now that there's a cougar down there? Are you going to use that as a cover story if anything happens? That you have a big cat down there now, which no one has seen evidence of it?
Well, they're good at covering it up, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing right now is we're looking at all of the alleged attacks around the country. And then we're looking at all of the bear kills around the country. We're trying to see if there's any coincide between a dogman attack or alleged dogman kill compared to a bear attack or a bear kill. Because a bear attack or a bear kill would be the easiest thing as a cover story for Dogman, because the tracks are very similar, the animal looks very similar, and people would accept a bear attack before they would accept a Dogman attack or a bear kill. And I'm sure the kills are pretty much the same, the way the kills look. So it's hard saying. So we're trying to look at that to see if there's some type of a connection with that there. But in Virginia, we have a guy who's on the team that he's finding claw marks on trees, real high up claw marks, where something just been clawing trees in this particular area. So that's kind of odd. Bears do it, but they know there's no bears in this particular area. And standing up, a black bear is no more than maybe 5 feet, 5.5 feet. Black bears are pretty small bears. They get up to maybe about 250 pounds, maybe 300, but they're not big bears. And these claw marks are 7 feet up. I mean, much higher than what a black bear could do. The pictures are kind of like it's going from the back of the tree going forward. It's odd. It really is. But that's the kind of fun stuff we get, so I'm happy about it.
Oh, I can understand why. Sounds like they're just pouring in. Didn't you tell me there was one out of Clermont County, Ohio?
Yeah, it's Riley Township. There was a incident where a couple horses were killed, and one was seriously injured. There were some goats, or sheep rather, that were killed. There also, the DNR was actually called out on this. And the owner of the farm stated that the tracks that were there are very large canine tracks. He did hear howling sounds a few nights prior to that, but this thing was able to take the head completely off one of the horses and kind of went after the other horse. Really big, nasty gash down the neck. We have the video of it, and I got a video still of it, but the horse is fine, so, I mean, the wound turned out pretty good. So, basically the DNR and the sheriff's department just destroyed evidence, just raked over the tracks and said, hey, this isn't no animal attack. Devil worshiping did this. Bunch of young kids into devil worshiping. Well, where's the evidence of devil worshiping? Where's the pentagrams at? Where's the candles? Where's the blood bowls? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Where's the evidence that something took place? And the fact of the matter, there wasn't. So a few weeks later, there's this young African man that did a lot of work for the different farms around the area, immigrant. He was into voodoo because that was his religion from where he was from, but he never was into animal mutilation or anything like that. And he's a pretty small guy. They said, okay, this is the guy that did it. And the thing of it is, the size of this guy, if he horses fight back, you know what I'm saying? They're just not going to let you go up on them. And horse could kill you. A kick could kill you. And this little guy, I mean, there's just no way he had a machete and he's beating these horses with it. And the thing of it is, the metal fence corral that they have was literally bent down by force in order for whatever it was to get in there. Okay? Totally impossible for a human being. Totally impossible. So the guy that owns a farm, he knows that this guy had nothing to do with it. This is a cover-up that's taken place. Because he states that he sees DNR guys in camouflage, in ghillie suits, with high-power rifles out on his property. He's seen them. He's walked on them. And, when they see him, they run. So obviously they're there looking for something where they're camouflaged with high-power rifles, looking for something. And if it's this little guy, they wouldn't be doing it. So he knows that there's something more than what the real story is. Well, the guy never got prosecuted for it or anything like that. But it just goes to show you that, they'll do anything to cover something up. If that means ruining the life of an innocent person, they'll ruin the life of an innocent person. And that's shameful. And I tell people this. I was reading a story about the government, and it was a lot of the stuff that Snowden put out. And like Snowden said, the government doesn't kill you anymore. It's easier to ruin somebody's life than it is to kill them, because humiliation is worse than death. And that's how the government works. That's what they'll do. They're not going to take you out to a field and put a bullet in your head and bury you. They'll humiliate you. There's something about this creature that's being kept from people. Obviously, we know the reason why Bigfoot is not being presented as an endangered species, because it lives in the woods, lives in the forest. We have to protect it, and then logging stops. When logging stops, houses aren't going to be built. People are going to lose jobs. So that's one of the main reasons why they're just not saying anything about Bigfoot. But when it comes to something like this is more terrifying, knowing that there's something out there that's taking the lives of humans and eating them. I mean, this is a monster in the eyes of people. So maybe there's something a little bit more to it. I don't know. Maybe the government ain't really doing anything about it. And the stories that we're hearing are just either fabricated or just taken the wrong way. We don't know. When we were in Germantown, we were doing an investigation, and we ran into a DNR guy there, and we were just talking, having a good old time, talking about the hunting in the area and things like that. And when he asked why we were there, we told him. And this guy put his hands on his hips, looked down to the ground, told us to get the hell out. I mean, it was just a total 180 of his whole attitude from when we first talked to him to when we told him that we're doing. So he knew exactly what this thing was. And he knew exactly why we were there after we sat and told him. And he's like, get out. Boom. I don't want to see you.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So there's something to it when it comes to DNR. They know what's going on.
Yeah, it sounds like they'll do whatever they can to bury it, too. But in their position, I can't say I'll blame them.
Well, the thing of it is, people aren't stupid. You can tell us if there's something wrong and things. I mean, people just aren't going to go out. Well, yeah, they are. But normal people just don't go out looking to get eaten up. And that's normal people. But there again, you got a bunch of guys that's going to go out drinking one night and going to want to bag this thing, and in the process end up hurting a civilian. So that's kind of what it is, too. So that's the kind of stuff you deal with when you're dealing with this.
These are crazy times we're living in. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
Really crazy times. We're about out of time, so at this point, I just wanted to thank you for coming back on the show and sharing all this info with us. I really appreciate it. No problem. Like I said, I will definitely keep you guys posted on the information we're getting from Florida, what we got this morning, and keep you updated on that. And hopefully I'll have the information by the time the show airs for you. Well, I definitely appreciate it, and thanks again so much for your time. No problem, brother. Well, have yourself a great night. You too, brother. Be good. Thanks. We'll see you. Bye. Bye.